This is Atlas Thugged. As much as we have, it's currently a media blackout right now. It's about a 10-minute video here. Get the libertarians out of this party, dude. Part of a new series I'm going to be running called Bot or Not.
I grew up as a white man, and you're the exact opposite, you know?
It's time we have a difficult conversation about race.
40 IQ points it needs to think about what is being told to you.
Most people are just blatantly apathetic to what goes on around in their surroundings, let alone this play.
A trans woman's penis make you gay?
Can I define to answer that comment?
The dating market is for men your age. I'm not a misogynist, I'm a sexist. Right, like for example, like as a white man, I can go out and I could go right here in Columbus and scream the N-word as loud as I wanted to because I have that privilege. Those who would sacrifice a little freedom for a little convenience serves neither.
Titan says, Browns should be for whites. We were just trying to help them run a better empire.
Hey, truth.
But she's straight up, she's like stock market. She's like, bro, like I can't even buy a fucking house. Like,
And you know, it probably doesn't help that half the comments are, "How are you not banned on YouTube? Man, how is this guy? How is this guy not banned on YouTube?" It's like, yeah, I'm sure YouTube probably picks up on those things, and they're probably wondering why so many people are saying that, you know.
and all these top brass pundits who have some kind of association or relationship with Epstein, you know, it's getting to the point where you got to think like I'm about to go look at my residential history and be like, did I live next to Epstein for like some time? Like, man, everyone on this planet must have some relation to Epstein. And then you go, oh, actually, no. This is because the administration is all wrapped in together with it themselves.
And I said this maybe about a year ago. You know, what if Christianity wasn't in such a cucked position that what if Andrew Tate, like Tristan, would have went to a Christian position? Fell for it again award, #1 right here. And you know what? I can't even make fun of the audience because I fell for it too. And that's probably what I'm most pissed about. He's huffing some extreme copium. Oh yeah, sister, you definitely owned him. Hey, can I see you after tonight? You know, it's like that's that's what you're competing up against because or bad jacketing him and calling him a weird little gay.
Is this like alt-right Folks husband? What am I listening to?
Okay, stop it. This guy's gonna get into statistics, stuff like that.
Oh, not statistics. Not
So-
on the show. We
so-
don't do statistics.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate. Still don't feel good from what has been going on, but I hope you guys have been able to reconcile at a greater degree. I'm going to make sure that this chat feature is operative before I do anything. Okay, it's working. We're going to cover a lot. We're going to go through a lot. I have aggregated a lot. But we're going to start on a high note. I want to shout out to Nick Fuentes. That stream was legendary. That was the response of a leader. You know, and I know people may be getting tired of hearing it, but the kid is generational. We obviously have detractors. We have people like Milo and Owen Benjamin and many that fit this mold that, you know, for lack of better words, are simply detractors. And so to see some of their responses, even amidst everything going on, in light of their own ego, in light of menial things that mean just so little and are so far and away removed from Christianity, was eye-opening, to say the least. It's nice to see you guys in here. Amanda, Michael, Sunrise Groiper. There is no ignoring Nick at this point. There is no more saying that these ideas are fringe. There's no more pretending that he doesn't command influence. There's no more pretending that there's not a large swath or percentage of young men or young Republicans even that are privy and agree with the ideas that he has long held. It was extremely professional. And above all, it honored God. It honored Jesus Christ. It pointed towards the actual problem of what is occurring. And I know I said a little bit of this on the Charlie Kirk stream last time, but he nailed it. And as I'm watching him just rip and riff, and it's not even in the same kind of form as it normally is, you know, kind of a bit satirical, maybe humorous, poking fun, but very charismatic. This was serious and still commanded the presence. There was something extreme about the impact of every word that came out of his mouth. No, I'm not going to try to sit here and, you know, glaze-eronymus, but it's true. And I kind of sit back and I think, how is anyone going to top this? How can you top Nick Fuentes? And part of it's because he's been doing it for such a long time. But the biggest aspect of it was the call to return to God. We have to bring people to Christ. I do appreciate you being in here, Dark Cell. I do appreciate it. I know people are busy and they got things going on. But yes, Nick is the future. And Sunrise Gorper saying that Nick grew up last night and 175,000 saw it live. That was crazy. I think the highest I ended up seeing was around 173,000. Still insane. And there were a few photos going around showing that he was the top English-speaking streamer in the world. And if you were to combine the next three below him, he still had more. And that includes Speed, that includes Kai Cenat, that includes Aiden Ross. I was trying to think who the third person was. And nice to see you stacking coins. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you very much. But yes, 175,000 is indeed a small army. It is. I mean, and this, you know, what's funny is while this is all going on, I'm between a few places, so I'm trying to prep for today. I'm keeping my ear to the timeline. I'm trying to follow this narrative as all this information's coming in. And one of my normie friends wanted to jump into Discord, and we were playing around and just, you know, casually hanging out, something I don't really ever do much anymore. And I was like, we're watching Nick together. Like, we're gonna watch some Nick together. And so, well, for me, I forgot how long Nick's intros are, so we didn't watch much of Nick, but I have been sending them clips, and that was that show from last night where you could pull any 2-minute clip, any 5-minute clip, 20-minute clip from that, and you could send that to your father. You could send that to your mother. You could send that to your grandfather. You could send that to heck, you could send that to that, you know, that personal guidance counselor at high school who you know is a little based. You could send that to them and say, hey man, take a listen. Like, I think this kid's spitting fire. Very strong, very impactful. But again, it's always met with some form of evil. You can't have one and not the other, right? You can't have just pure good without there being the presence of evil somewhere. This is just the reality of the world that we live in. And we'll get a little bit into the detraction. We'll slowly work our way into some of the negative aspects, but to see some of these bigwig, not have to say bigwig, but some of these prominent or were prominent, formerly prominent pundits like Owen Benjamin, Milo Yiannopoulos, and the newest one, Captive Dreamer, all use it as an ego lever to position themselves or to attack Nick or to, I mean, I'm so over the effeminate way that these men behave online on these social media platforms. But to go back to what Nick had actually said on stream, He even said it himself, like he is shook, much like I would imagine all of us are. I would imagine everyone still is. It's going down a bit easier today. We're a bit further removed from it. Not like it's ever going to be easy to think about that. But it was very eloquent the way he was able to still characterize the disagreements they had while also ripping up an extremely, just a fantastic eulogy. And I also sit there and I think, why don't I hear this energy from my pastor? Now, there are some, I'm not saying all, but that's the energy that I want. That's the energy when I hear a man speak truth to power, per se. That's what I expect to be hearing, is the words that left Nick Fuentes' mouth. And I got to tell you this, protecting Nick at all costs. I'm now actually extremely terrified of the attempts that may occur on Nick. We're not in any position to be losing our top brass. I not at all, not right now. Just can't, couldn't afford it. And it's sad and unfortunate. Not that I feel like I'm to blame at all for any reason, but I had posed this to Outside the Overton, I believe on our first episode together, which is, what happens to this movement if something happens to Nick? Now, this was obviously well before what happened to Charlie, but I think that now that question does need to be answered. I would hope he probably already is. He's a smart guy, probably upping his security, but the reality is the public appearances is, I know that, oh, forgive me, it looks like we had a little bit of a disconnection. I know that he's at least going to continue the attempt. The thing that was cool was to see a lot of these people say, no, we will not be pushed away. Like Myron Gaines, others saying, nope, we're still doing these. I do think there's some level of consideration that does need to be made about outside appearances. At least maybe put it for at least for the next year. Just like maybe we'll wait until it tones down a bit. And so I'm so rosy, dude. I swear it's at least 130 degrees in the studio. Hence the open shirt. But it was cool to see that. The thing that wasn't cool to see was the Ben Shapiro side of it. But we'll get to that. Like I said, we'll keep a bit more positive. But I admired, actually, the fire and brimstone that we got from Nick Fuentes. What I would like to do is actually spend a moment, just like they did with the Charlie Kirk show. We're going to honor Charlie at the start here. They rolled a little bit of a clip of an empty chair from the Charlie Kirk show, which I believe was with the majority of the producers they had there. So we're going to go ahead and take a second and we'll spend doing that here. This is from Eric Daughtry. He clipped it a little bit, but this is what they did on this is my X page. This is what they did for Charlie here. It's only about a minute long, but we'll go ahead and play it. And this is some of these, parting words from some of the guys who worked on the Charlie Kirk show. So we'll go ahead and take a listen to that here.
So badly to do this show for all of you today. And I wanted the friends of this show and of Charlie that knew him best, the Thought Crime crew, to be here in the studio to commemorate our friend, our dear brother, for this sacred, this solemn moment, this occasion none of us ever dreamed we would have to do. And here we are, because Charlie would want us to be here. He would be upset if we weren't here. And we, of course, have left his chair open and empty because nobody will ever fill it. Nobody could ever hope to. But by all of us together, we want to honor him, and we want to be more like him, and we want to be inspired by him, and we want you in the audience to know him like we knew him, and to be up close and personal to the front row seat to history, to a legend, to an American icon that we got every single day.
And as I was thinking about it, and again, RIP to Charlie Kirk, you think of some of the leaders, some of the more prominent individuals in this side of the space, right? We'll not even say our movement, right? We'll include everybody right wing. So some big figures there. I would say if you were to throw at least 5, 6, 7, 8 in a hat, you would get Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, Nick would make that list. And then I think inside of there, you would also have names like Tucker, Candace Owens, Tim Pool probably, Jack Posobiec, Steve Bannon. Those are kind of around the names. You would get Alex Jones even. And you think of that group and of the trio that are like the presidential. So it's Trump and then 2 or 2 people who have been painting as being presidential candidates. Bannon in the race late, but we're not really concerned about him. Andrew Wilson's a good one. But Kirk and Fuentes were both primed as young people. Nick here recently a lot, but even it was a part of like the Rush Limbaugh intro that one day Charlie Kirk would be the president of the United States. A lot of people thought that. A lot of people thought that was the trajectory he was on. And so you think about those 3. You have Donald Trump, Nick Fuentes, Charlie Kirk. All of them have had attempts on their life. Fuentes, and Hot Rod pointed it out, media barely covered that one. That one was the one that Elon allowed the doxing to remain on the platform from like 8 hours straight. But not to throw Elon, not like we need to be blaming people right now. Just getting some assessments here. But those are 3 of our guys, if you will. And of those 3, Trump had 2 in the last couple of years, survived both. By the grace of God, survived the one. Nick survived his. Luckily, his is a bit more, it was more of a very awkward situation. It was private. Luckily, he had security, had a lot of cameras around his home that was prevented. And then we have Charlie's. And Charlie's was successful. Now, I do think there's a couple questions as to why does the weight of what happened to Charlie, I think, one, because the attempt was successful, I think that's an easy and obvious answer, but it does feel different because this is I like the way that Nick presented it because Charlie Kirk was ubiquitous. He was everywhere. He's on TikTok, he's on Instagram, he's on YouTube Shorts, he's on X, he's on the news, he's on cable TV. Hell, he's on Timcast IRL. This guy was putting the work in. No one can say he wasn't. This guy was putting the groundwork by far. A actual conservative version of Scott Pressler, if you will. And not for Pressler to catch a stray, but, still have disagreements. This doesn't mean our disagreements go away. And when you conceptualize that, you go, oh, they're trying to kill all of us. Moderate versions, extreme versions, even old versions like Trump. It's gotten to the level that our guys are clearly, obviously, in the sights. They're in the targets. And so when you think about it from that perspective, and you look at the possibility of who would be presidential people, well, it's the Hitler scenario, right? They are attempting to murder them before they even make it to the podium. That's kind of like where we are. We'll watch a little bit of some of the, what I call the ugly, as there has been some very egregious things. Now, I don't think it is in the line of like, we need to be consuming this stuff as like misery porn, right? Like watching all these evil people say these evil things just to rile yourself up. I don't think that's a good thing to do either. But to conceptualize principles and the way that they think is, to me, I think that is helpful. And I would imagine the majority of people here, especially the audience in my audience, largely because I've always been positioned against Kirk. I've obviously had a strong disagreements with him. I changed the thumbnail that I had from the previous video I made between Nick versus him, I felt that was the right thing to do. Because I had a thumbnail in there that was a pretty rough photo of Charlie Kirk. And, obviously, moment then, it's a funny thing to poke fun at. Looking back at it, you go, maybe that's not the move. Maybe we need to change that a little bit. But where we arrive right now is chaos. And what I mean by that is on a couple levels. We have chaos on the level of the current environment, the current culture, which is, in the words of Asmongold in the video he put out, which he wasn't streaming, he made a 19 or 20 minute video mobilizing people because he even himself says, I don't know what the next step is, so I myself am getting involved because I don't want to know what is on the other side of that door. Which he caveats and says, but I think we all know what's on the other side of that door. So to see Asmongold leverage his community, which, this guy is getting 1.1 million views in 6 hours. This guy commands some influence too, and partly because he's allowed on these mainstream platforms. And then there's the chaos of the official narrative. The chaos of the official narrative, because we essentially have competing ideas as to who's behind it and why. So I will try to present things as objectively as I possibly can. I clearly have my own biases. I think people in the audience know that. So at least take some of this with a grain of salt. I will insert my own opinions here. But there is a lot to look at, and none of it makes sense. It's just none of it makes sense. Now, you can kind of put some tint on the glasses and it will make sense, but neither side of the aisle is really kind of convincing me or making me, I just caught that one random comment. That's funny. But none of it's making me believe it. So the story so far. So we'll start with what the official narrative is, and then we'll go with what the alternative narrative is. And I think that's probably the good way to break these down. The story so far, this is what the narrative is that the shooter, who was identified as Tyler Robinson, is just another disgruntled, broken, lost, leftist, consumed by their hatred of God and what is good, trans affirming individual. That's who he is being painted out to be. So that's the story of who this is. The background of this individual, and a lot of this is contradictory, a lot of it's competing information, but the most believable source is saying right now is that he came from a rather conservative and Christian family, and that he was kind of the black sheep of the family. He was the leftist of the family. Now, there are reports that say this was a gradual or a fast change. It wasn't gradual. And that it had occurred in the last 3 to 4 to 5 years. There are family members who have said this and attested to this, and even to the point of saying that there were recent kind of intense conversations about said new positioning, new kind of expression of beliefs. And that there was also another intense, I think the verbatim use of the words that they had in the article was intense expression of beliefs. It was the way that they had reported on it. So he's 22 years old, and he murdered Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University there in Orem, Utah, on the roof, and that he was arrested after a 2-day manhunt, which I believe the official post was within 36 hours, 33 to be exact, and a lot of people pointed out why the usage of 33. From there, what we also got was that he'd actually had confessed to his family members. So take that for what you will. But it was the confession to the family members that drove the father to ultimately turn him in, which, as far as I read, was a pretty intense car ride And then the father subsequently then also turned down the reward. What I will note here is Steve Bannon had a unique take on this, where he thinks that at this point, he's not buying that story. He thinks that the father did it because he knows ultimately he probably will be considered an accessory, especially the longer that it goes on, and that he may have known a lot earlier and then didn't turn him in until a day after. So take that from what you will. So Steve Bannon has an issue with that. Some reports are calling him the father of justice. I don't know. And the dad was also former law enforcement. He was also a former minister, as it says. And then a lot of the people in the family were in the military. So everything makes it look and seem and all appearances of, ostensibly, that they were a conservative family. They had the markings and the makings of a conservative family. Forgive me, I'm sitting weird, aren't I? I'm moving the chat a little bit. I'll just make it a little bit smaller. Sorry, I'm looking at like 3 different screens here. What we got initially, and again, a lot of this is competing chaos. We have poisoning of the well, which always happens. The media can't trust them as far as you can throw them. So the records were, or the reports were, that he's like this registered Republican. He donated to Trump. And those are false. It's an attempt from these astroturfers to be able to escape the blame, paint him as something else, whether it's, conservative. But here's the other element, which is I'm even getting comments on some of my older videos I saw earlier today while I was show prepping, that people are of the belief that a Groyper did it. Now they're even painting that using some of the language that he had said, but the glaring thing there is he's calling people fascists as kind of a slur, as a the derogatory use. You're a fascist. Groypers would never do that. If a Groyper was going to denigrate somebody, everybody knows the first 3-letter word that's coming out of their mouth. That was not present for this individual. Again, it's not real. But it's poisoning of the well to obfuscate, confuse, and blind. But at the tail end of that, ultimately, is to leave people to their own devices, which is more often to say to leave people to their own biases, make of that from what you will, which is a lot of people see the information, they're already biased to preconceived ideas. They just fall in line with that. The other part of this is that he acted alone, or at least it's kind of being promulgated on the ground, that is, the day of, he acted alone. The investigation, though, is ongoing. And that's where it kind of ropes in a little bit of the digital footprint and the Discord and the contention thereof. So we have TMZ having reporting with Discord themselves. So Discord, the app, the social app, which I would imagine many of you are familiar with, they have denied that not only did he use it to upload his plans, but also secondarily, they are denying that he communicated with anybody about these plans. The only issue with that is Steven Crowder obtained internal documents from the sheriff's office in Utah that shows on page 3 that they had a roommate of Tyler's show them the Discord. And the investigators took photos of every single message. And you know what? I think it's probably something worth being put on screen here. And I do have that. This is from Steven Crowder. Let me swing it over here. It's going to be hard to see. It's on this last one. So they separated it by kind of 4 different aspects of the crime here. But let me pull this up here. I'm going to open it in a new tab that makes it easier for me to zoom in, so you guys can see it better. Get this as clear as we can. So it's going to start right here. So details up here about the home, but we're going to start right here, if you can see my mouse. Investigators identified an individual as the roommate of Robinson. Investigators interviewed the roommate, who stated that his roommate, referring to Robinson, made a joke on Discord. Investigators asked if he would show them the messages on Discord. He opened it and showed several messages to investigators and allowed investigators to take photos of the screen as each message was shown by Robinson's roommate. These photos consisted of various messages, including content of messages between the phone contact name Tyler with an emoji icon and Robinson's roommate's device. So we're going to stop here because we're going to get into a few other things that are important here. The element from here would be if Discord is denying it, and I put that in, funnily enough, how say I responds, I would too, which I think is to say anybody's going to deny this. They don't want any ounce of responsibility put on them, especially not a day after the situation. They don't want to take that heat. So the easy solution to this would be to say, hey, publish the Discord, publicize the Discord. Maybe we will get that. But right here, here's one of the first contradictions. Here's one of the first major contradictions is then if Discord, and the other thing that I would say additionally with this, before we move on to the second aspect there, you have to really have some balls at Discord to outright deny this. Because on the other hand of that, I do think if it's then the DOJ posts these messages and shows you're lying completely, that's an even worse look, because now the question is, why would Discord take any level of step to protect this guy? So that's where I'm kind of going, interesting. So what do you make of that? I'm of the belief that I don't think this hot off the press, a company would be willing to throw everything away because they wanted to have some meager like defense of a leftist, especially when the temperature in the room is nothing close to being left-wing right now. But that's at least from my opinion. And again, if you were to ask me to trust the government or a private corporation, I would tell you I would just flip a coin. But to go back to the secondary element of the Discord messages here, and one other thing as well, before I go a little bit further in here, is meanwhile, with all this happening, you do get Nick basically telling we do need the temperature to get turned down. And you have a lot of other people demanding that the temperature be turned down. The reality is we all know what just occurred was a watershed moment. That is, I mean, we are steps. I mean, no one can really see it. It's a very hard thing to predict, but everyone at this point, we've known for a while that feeling that's kind of eating at people. We're headed towards a bad place. I think right now, everyone, it's like the energy's like in your eyes, like the blur from the screen. It's so close. I might not be able to see much, but I can definitely feel it. It's a rough spot. And I think that ultimately does call upon us and many others. We have to be above reproach. The same exact way that Nick outlined it. We need to be above reproach. We need to make sure we take this one step at a time. We don't lower ourselves to their level. And we have rational responses to what's going on. But to go back to where we were at here, you know, as they described that they took photos and what they had seen from the Discord here, they go on in this report to say that the content of these messages included messages affiliated with the contact Tyler, stating a need to retrieve a rifle from a drop point, leaving the rifle in a bush, messages related to visually watching the area where a rifle was left, and a message referring to having left the rifle wrapped in a towel. The messages also referred to engraving bullets and a mention of a scope and the rifle being unique. So now we get into, now that's multiple other elements here. So there's three major elements in this. Now we do have a coordination element here, which is this goes from solo job to he had someone helping him. Was it on the ground or in the context of financing, funding, facilitating? That's yet to be seen. This reads to me like possibly he could be an accessory. But then we get to the rifle. needing to retrieve a rifle from a drop point. If you see the video that they both covered in the press conference and has been flooding all over social media, the video of him running across the roof and dropping off the building, he has no rifle. There's no rifle present. And if we scroll down here, well, forgive me, it's not on this one. Okay, we'll just have to trust me. And you can find on the Steven Crowder thing, they detail this. In the actual internal documents, it says from the sheriff's department, it says at the moment that the shot was fired, the suspect was running across the roof, meaning it connects to where the CCTV footage picks up or whatever that was that caught him there, meaning that he didn't disassemble the rifle there. So if he jumps off the building with no rifle, they also have in this internal document that he does leave something on the roof, but supposedly the FBI finds a rifle fully assembled in the woods. That's not making any sense here. Because then I have to believe that this kid is Flash Gordon and he disassembled the rifle in a blink of an eye, put it in his backpack, jumped off the roof with it, hauled it the whole way, and then reassembled it for some reason, and then left it in a box, in a towel, in the woods. That doesn't make any sense, and that's contradictory, and that is what Michael Savage has been poking a lot of holes into, which is this official narrative on its face right now is not making any sense. And Anthony Tony's right. Why would he reassemble it? That's the question. That makes no sense. He's on the run. He ends up 250 miles away. And he's going to take the possibly 3 minutes it would take to reassemble. From what most people have said, that this model is extremely, extremely difficult to disassemble. That it's just not ultimately meant to be collapsible, meaning you would have to unscrew it, you would have to take it apart physically. So that part doesn't make any sense. And it also is fishy too, how similar this. And the other thing too is you got to take in mind the roommate preps the investigators by saying that this is it's a joke. So he wasn't taking this seriously. Maybe his roommate's just as deranged as this kid possibly is, allegedly. But as I'm reading it, it reads as if they're talking like these are Discord messages about Fortnite. Bush, a rifle, I hid it here. Come pick it up. Drop point. It reads closer to what somebody would saying as callouts in Fortnite than it does a coordinated plan. And I am also curious then at what point we will get these Discord messages if that's what they're claiming. At the same time, I do think you have to have some cojones to come out twice to TMZ as Discord and deny any of that. Knowing how viral this was, knowing that the FBI was involved. I don't know. Maybe the people at Discord are as, ideologically driven as a lot of others, and maybe I'm just not taking that into consideration, but I find that a bit hard to believe. And so I think better put, actually, I will go to Michael Savage here. This is from Health Ranger. Well, this is the right one. No, it is not. This is the right one. This is from Michael Savage. He's going to explain this kind of thought process a bit better than I will. I guess I'm not on screen here. But I'll go up to this good thought here. This is from Carl Johansson. Johansson. Got Dutch in here. He says, is it possibly Tyler was just the spotter and the shooter snuck out later with a rifle? A spotter would make the shot easier. So here's another element, which I was going to get a little bit later, but your question's going to drive it out of me earlier. We have no footage of the shot being fired from the rifle. We don't have footage showing fire, like the rifle shooting. There's no footage of that, which is different from Thomas Crooks, which we do have some elements of the video of him actually firing the rifle, which I think opens some doors there too. And we haven't even gotten to the plane we haven't even gotten to the decoys. A lot of chaos. And we haven't even gotten to Israel. So we'll flip it over. Michael Savage. And this is kind of the energy I feel with it too. I'm not too familiar at all with who Michael Savage is. But this is what he says and why he believes that what we're getting from the FBI is complete bullshit. And largely a lot of what I have just already stated. But here's Michael Savage.
Did anyone see that
Well, let me avoid blowing your eardrums out.
press conference by the so-called FBI? Something's wrong. I know I shouldn't do this. I'm risking an awful lot to go up against this FBI, the MAGA FBI. Something's very wrong with what I just heard. I mean, I watched it. I was hoping that they had caught the bastard who shot Charlie. So we saw a video of a person jumping off the roof. It looked very legitimate to me. However, there was no rifle in his hand. Now, the Mauser does not break down very easily, incidentally, for those of you who know weapons. Something's wrong with the whole thing. They're trying to claim he removed the barrel from the Mauser and fit the receiver and stock in his backpack and barrel in his pants leg all in 2 seconds. It is not easy to remove a Mauser barrel or index it after reinstalling and remain accurate. We are not hearing or seeing reality. And by the way, the photo of the rifle allegedly left in the woods has the barrel installed. So we're supposed to believe a guy is on the run after killing Charlie Kirk, and he pauses in the woods to reinstall a barrel, and then he leaves it for us to find, the FBI to find. I don't believe a word of it. I shouldn't do this. I know I'm putting myself at risk, but I can't take it anymore. I can't take the bullshit from this fucking government. It's lying to us.
Now that's the gist. And Jason Smith was going to brings up the point I was going to move to right after that, which is you're going to take the official word of the same 3-letter agencies, the alphabet agencies, who you know are lying to you about Epstein. Again, I can't trust the government. I can't. It's like the one thing I can't do. Like Jesus himself would have to ask me to trust the government for me to do it. A lot of holes. And there's a bit more to it too. And it is overall sad. And another aspect of it too is the ATF subpoenaed Crowder, not for the second set, which it probably will be, but for the first set that he had released. Largely, I imagine, because they want to know who at the agency leaked it to Crowder so they can fire him. So he's being charged. So Tyler Robinson is being charged. Yeah, it's an anxiety pen, guys. So Tyler is being charged with aggravated murder. So it sets him up for the death penalty. And that's not to mention the federal charges he's also facing. That also carries the death penalty. So where I'm going to break away from the rest of what I would say a lot of mainstream conservatives are, is I am not willing to cheer for this kid to go through a swift execution because I do not believe the preponderance of evidence have met the burden of pushing me past a reasonable doubt. It just hasn't. He very well could be, but it's not enough for me so far. I just don't think we have enough. And it's not to say I don't understand the sentiment. It's not to say I don't understand the anger. It's not to say I don't understand the rage, the frustration. It's to say that I don't trust the government enough, and I would be remiss and quite frankly deserving, like anyone else reporting on it, to lose all credibility if I didn't entertain all the other elements to the story that poke holes and offer alternate ideas of what may be behind this. So again, obviously we have the issue with the rifle. I think that's glaring. I think that's the biggest one right now. I think most of the other ones, like with the AI and the ring, have been debunked. The ring looking like it switched fingers was because it wasn't even really a ring. It was like one of these fake knockoff things you can get from a Chinese buffet, like a half semicircle, so it looks like it just fell out of his hand, which gave the optical illusion that it was a ring, like it switched fingers, like AI or something. But I do think that there is an element that it's got to be, that maybe the reason why they're trying to hastily get this along, like what Donnie is alluding to there in the comment, is to close the case as fast as possible so people quit asking questions. Maybe I'm being paranoid, but maybe I'm not. So the second narrative. What is this alternate narrative? What is this second thing? Who else could be behind it? What else could possibly be happening? Thank you very much, Mr. 1989 Theology. Appreciate that very much, sir. And if you guys want to know more about Mr. 1989, me and him do have an episode here on Offensively Accurate. I believe 2 weeks ago now at this point. You can find that here and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Great guy. But what is the second narrative? Well, I'm a groiper, so Israel. No, I'm serious. Actually, legitimately, is Israel. This is the moment where a lot of you leave. Just kidding. And seriously, I would be remiss if I didn't cover this. I just would be. I think not taking this into consideration is ignorant. So a lot of you probably coming from outside the Overton, I've not covered it much here. I've spoken to it a little bit. I'm sure a lot of you guys on OTO probably saw a lot of the clips they were running. And it was news to me. Now, I had caught a few pieces of it. Ultimately, I didn't buy it. But in some of the final months, Charlie Kirk began to notice. Maybe not notice, but Charlie Kirk was clearly pivoting and opening himself up to changing his hard-nosed stance on Israel. The gray zone, which Max Blumenthal is the writer of this article that is taking fire across X right now, reported that a Trump insider and a longtime friend of Charlie Kirk told them that his pivot away from Israel provoked private backlash from his donor network that left him angry and afraid. He was secretly watching Nick live. He might have seen a bit more than what we realize, because he was that kind of guy. I'm sure he didn't block people out. Now, he did do some things that ultimately, I disagree with, and he did do some things that did suppress a lot of the ideas that I disagree with him on. But I don't think he did it in a sense because what he thought he was doing was the right thing. But again, I don't know this guy, so never met him, only know of him. But like I had said on the Charlie, thank you very much. I appreciate that very much. He says, this is from Dominic Mastriani. Sorry if I said it wrong, but he says, I'm realizing my shock and anger got the best of me. You're right. This smells fishy and something isn't right. I understand part of it too was beaten into me from the Nick stream as well. This extreme denouncement of picking up arms, being rational, thinking first. It did push me back a little bit, but trust me, I don't not understand the anger. Believe me, every ounce of my humanity wants me to act on it, right? This is every part of me wants to go and do those things, although I know they are wrong. But then we have Harrison Smith, and this is who I had been highlighting a little bit, because in August, at the beginning of August, Harrison Smith was actually approached by said friend. So the way the Gray Zone article basically highlights or sets this article out is that Charlie wanted these thoughts to be known, but he was afraid to say them himself. So he invested these thoughts and ideals into his friend, and he says, I want you to tell them. I want you, my friend, you tell people these things. That's how the article sign sets this up. And so the idea here is that in these private conversations in the private life, one of the people that this friend spoke to was Harrison Smith, which explains why Harrison Smith was so far and ahead of everybody else on Charlie Kirk being afraid. So everybody pay attention to Harrison Smith. Curious what some of his recent streams will cover and how maybe he will open up to who this person is, this individual may be. So they also said in this article that anxiety was spreading within the Trump administration because there was an apparent Israeli spying operation that was uncovered. Now, they do go on to say later that there's no confirmation of this, only that they have a couple of sources speaking to it. But they also highlight a few other instances very, very similar to that. The one that was, most surprising is the Boris Johnson one, which was after Bibi Netanyahu had used his bathroom, he found a listening device in there. So I think that might have been back in 2019. So here's a bit of the timeline. Earlier this year, Charlie rejected an offer from Bibi Netanyahu, which was meant to infuse cash into TPUSA. And the friend said that Charlie felt like this was Netanyahu bullying him, or kind of pushing him, cowing him into silence. Charlie didn't appreciate that. And it came after some of Charlie's first pivots away from Israel, some of his first public remarks that were, well, wait a minute. So the source also said that in private, Charlie referred to Netanyahu as a bully and that he was really beginning to loathe who Netanyahu was. Kirk also strongly warned Donald Trump last June against bombing Iran in private. The article verbatim says that Trump barked at him. And after he barks at him, that he angrily shut down the conversation. So again, this is from the Gray Zone. You can find this. Again, that's Max Blumenthal. You'll go find it. It's thegrayzone.com. Just search it by Charlie Kirk Netanyahu Israel assassination. You can find that article there too. So the source believes that that was the moment that solidified to Charlie that Trump has somehow fallen under some kind of malign foreign influence. That this harsh reaction, this outside the norm for someone who had access to Trump, for someone who was close, this shift caught him off guard. And for me, a lot of reading through this, because at the time when I was seeing a lot of this, I wasn't buying it. I was only buying into it so far as to think that this was Charlie postulating. I seriously thought that this was Charlie going, listen, the truth is that, okay, maybe there are some things, that's postulating. That's what he was doing in that conference there in June. And so when I see that, I think, no, this is just their way to kind of get ahead of the narrative. They want to not bleed influence to people like Nick and other members of the dissident right. And then now after this, obviously I think everybody, myself included, look at a lot of this in a whole entirely different light. And I will say right now, I hope Charlie forgives me for being so blinded by my disdain for the current environment we're in. I'm sorry. So then if, again, you back out to June of this year, that's when this conference is held. It's largely between a lot of these regional chapter heads of a lot of these, younger people who are in TPUSA, because he wants to hear from the grassroots. Okay, what's going on? Because clearly there's a break in the messaging somewhere. A lot of the youth are very anti-Israel. We're losing support here, but a lot of the older people are still okay. So where's this disconnect at? And so again, when I see that, I only think, no, this is posturing. This isn't real. But it was after this meeting that's when Charlie has this instance with Megyn Kelly and a few other people, that he was getting extreme messaging in private from his donors and the network of people who fund and back a lot of his organizations and those affiliated with, that were very angry at Charlie for even beginning to open the idea that there's possibility of a question, that possibly maybe we're not being given the whole truth when it comes to Israel. Those were his famous last words, said to Ben Shapiro. In the interview most people are looking at now, that does highlight how Ben has a facial reaction to the words coming out of Charlie's mouth, like he was surprised that Charlie would even say something like that. And then in the same token, as much as I cover news and watch stuff, I do not remember for the life of me Charlie having any public outcry against Trump for the striking of Iran. I know that he was kind of walking a line. I don't know if he was really pro or against it, but to see this in private I think he was struggling. I think he was really actually struggling with what his beliefs were and the people who were around him having some of these moments like that. Thank you very much, Lord of the Ree. Super chat here. Lord of the Ree says, people like Cenk, AOC, and Colbert aren't sad because Charlie died. That's performative. They're scared because they know what the rhetoric started. Yeah. And that's part of it too, which is like, you look at some of these left-wing people, and I'm going to be honest, I think the only person who had a genuine reaction was Ethan Klein. And quite frankly, to me, like, I think he's one of the biggest, like, enemies. He's a huge gatekeeper. And I think maybe that's just because he might be one of the only few of those on that side of the aisle that has even an ounce of humanity left. And I even said it then too. I think Hassan's reaction was, and again, he's kind of went away from it now. He's been on a crazy path, dude. That guy's insane. I think Hassan's reaction was largely because of how graphic it was. When you see something like that, you're like, ooh, like, I don't care who it is. It's like, you don't want to feel that pain. And you don't want to hear them feel that pain. So he does have this conference with TPUSA. He's beginning to hear the cries from the youth, the people who are in his chapters, those who aren't even Groypers who have questions about Israel, right? Those who haven't even gone to that distance yet. And to think that he begins to get swarmed by these Zionist donors because he thought that he could, that for a second, the TPUSA that he worked on, that he built with his bare hands, was his. They said, Charlie, get back in line. And his friend says, even in this article, you can find it verbatim, the source from the friend says that Charlie did not appreciate that he was being told what he could and couldn't do. And that his fear was coming not from what may possibly happen, but by how quickly the exchanges had went from normal, friendly, polite to extremely hostile. And I think a lot of what that speaks to is you weren't the friend to them. You were their tool. You were their useful individual. Thank you very much, Edward. Let me say this name right. Mr. Edward Cohenfan. I appreciate that very much. He says, if Charlie were to have turned, Israel would have lost one of its last pro-Israel young voices. We must watch who appears next for young people. And that is the other moving element here to the story, which I think is in line with the Israel side of the narrative, which is there's already talk I looked it up. I don't believe it's been confirmed. I know that Ben Shapiro has spoken words to it, but the thought process, or the fear rather right now, is that Ben Shapiro is going to take over for TPUSA. And I'm going to tell you right now, you cannot, I don't care if everybody at TPUSA can't stand me. Please, if there's one brother who has ears who may find the stream somewhere, you cannot replace Charlie Kirk with someone who believes Jesus is burning in hell. You will utterly shame, you will shame Charlie's legacy by replacing him with someone who hates everything that he loved and stood for. You cannot allow Ben Shapiro to be the head of TPUSA. Find a Christian. But that's the fear. The fear is that Ben Shapiro is going to take over for TPUSA, which then, I think, surmises the end goal, if you were to look at it from this perspective, which was the reasoning or the rationale for why Israel would want to do something like that, which is if they're already in, emergency code blue for the support, because the youth is dropping so low that they're close to a 10 to 20 year stretch, could ultimately bring that to net like zero, or, basically 5%, which is the same thing in those terms. And your biggest speaker to the youth, your biggest asset outside of Ben Shapiro, but I would say Charlie was a better one for those causes, is beginning to walk away, ask questions, say, are we being presented the truth about Israel? So then the rationale would be, we have to remove this guy. We have to continue the project and get him out of the way so that he does not open anything that we do not want them seeing. The parallels to Charlie Kirk here and JFK, if we were to take this as truth, is astounding. But I did get another super chat. Let me find this. I'm not skipping it at all. I just wanted to get that point out. Again, from Dominic Mastriani. Imagine a world with a Israeli critical Kirk. That influence alone would change the temperature overnight. Look what they took from us again. Exactly. In the same way that I feel that had people probably felt about JFK getting assassinated, that's probably exactly what we're feeling right now. And maybe even more so. And maybe with a different tone, too. A different character. 31 years old. I saw the post from Erica Kirk earlier today, and truth be told, I wasn't man enough to finish it. We all need God. The country needs God. Even all of us in here need to take a step closer to God too. And I will tell you what, as many of you who've been here for a minute and since the beginning, I've only recently fallen into the Groyper and in the alt-right, the dissident right, Christian nationalists as of the last couple of years. I'm a newcomer. I'm not nearly as reined in or as honed in as some of you old heads in here are. I looked up to Charlie Kirk a lot when I grew up. I liked listening to Charlie Kirk. I thought Charlie Kirk has some of the best arguments on separation of church and state. I think there's a 6-minute clip of Charlie Kirk that needs to be instituted over a Supreme Court ruling. I felt like a part of me got shot. And again, the guy was everywhere, ubiquitous. And it's the same way, like Head and Naked said, you build these kind of parasocial relationships. You kind of get this feeling of like, I think I kind of know how Charlie would react if I was to hand him, if I was to say, hey, Charlie, you want a beer? You kind of get these things in your head. Like, I feel like I kind of knew him. Ultimately, you didn't. I didn't. Maybe some of you may have met him. I never did. It's very hard to truly articulate why it feels as bad as it does, but it does. And, not to spend too much time being sad, moving on to the next element, which is, after he has this big conference, which I would consider then was like, PR damage control. He then actually has a sit down with Megyn Kelly. And it's the sit down with Megyn Kelly is where Charlie airs out he has been getting spammed with messages from his donors and pro-Israel bigwigs. So just to freshen this, I'm sure many of you probably know what I'm talking about, but I will play it again so we give us a refresher of what this is. It's about a 2-minute clip here. And it is from Dr. Anastasia Maria Lupus. Charlie Kirk said he was an Israeli target for pushing for the release of the Epstein files, and that he worried about his safety because of right-wing extremists. About a 2-minute clip. Let's play it.
Do you think there's any intel community involvement in this?
I wouldn't be surprised one bit. I am convinced, based on my own sources and my own reporting on this story, he wasn't one of ours.
So he was an American, which leads basically 3 options: MI6, Saudi, or Mossad.
Yep.
Which one would you choose?
I guess Mossad, given his connection to Ghislaine Maxwell.
So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, it's possible that that's the reason everything's getting buried, that there is some treasure trove, and it's getting buried because...
How many people here believe that? Raise your hand. Okay, I'd say about half the hands think that it's being buried because of an Israeli thing.
It could be. I really don't know.
I have no evidence to suggest that.
No, me neither. I did think it was very odd how, look, half of you raised your hands because you've heard that theory, you've heard it debated, you have questions, but the one time Pam Bondi was asked a question about this at the cabinet meeting on Monday, she was like, and as for whether he was an agent, that I don't know. I haven't looked into that. I'll get back to you. You haven't looked into it? What do you mean? So that was kind of a fishy answer.
And Megan, remember Alexander Acosta in 2007, he said he was told to treat Epstein carefully because he was an intel asset. That was one of Trump's cabinet secretaries who was literally a U.S. attorney 3 hours from here in Florida. He said that himself.
Well, and let me tell you the consequences of that. His subpoena, his search warrant on Jeffrey Epstein's residence was very narrow. It was not the kind of like, let's get everything. Let's see everything inside this guy's, dressers and so on. It was very, very narrowly tailored. And to this day, that's what the FBI is stuck with.
Many of you may not know, Acosta then went on to serve in the administration after this. Because, again, apparently a requirement to be in the United States government is that you have to have some relation with Epstein. You have to have lived next to him at some point. You have to have some sketchy emails at some point. Again, another huge, needle in my eye when I try to believe anything coming from the United States government. But he was vocal about that. He was vocal about the temperature in the room surrounding the issue. It was clear he was at least, in some way beginning to ask the question. Or at the very least, release some pressure for his audience to be able to be open to these things as well without feeling like they may be, discarded or excised out of their group. And then in one of his, his final shows, one of his final kind of sit downs is with Israel's top dog, Ben Shapiro. And that's when he crossed the line. And you can visually see the moment in Ben's face. You can watch as it changes, as Charlie asks if we're being told the truth about Israel. Now that one, I'm not sure if I have in here, but that one we do need to watch. Let me get rid of some of these tabs here, guys. I actually thought I had that in the outline. I do not. It's pretty easy to find, though. It's only about 40 seconds long. Let's find it here, guys. I have this massive outline I made, and there's still missing things. But here we go. It's this clip right here. So this is on September 9th. So this is the day before.
Act against the...
Oh, come on, Twitter. Why is X gotta be so dog?
Act against the media on COVID, on lockdowns, on Ukraine, on the border, on so like maybe we should also ask a question: is the media totally presenting the truth when it comes to Israel? Just a question, that maybe we shouldn't believe everything the media says, because I know I've been conditioned to ask a lot more critical questions over the last couple of years. So,
well, for whatever reason, the words weren't matching up to his lips. I've seen one where it did, but that was it. Are we being presented the truth about Israel? And he poses it in a way of previous events that we were supposedly being presented the truth of, and it turns out we were not, such as Ukraine, such as COVID, you could go down the line. You could go back the next, every single year of American history, to be quite honest with you. You could find something along those lines like that. So, did Israel do this? Did Israel do this? I lean that direction right now. I lean that direction because I think I have to make less assumptions to believe it. I'm curious what you guys think. I'll put a poll up. I'll get a gauge of where you guys are at. Let me do this right now. Who done it? Lone Wolf or Israel? All right. We'll check that here in a second. And the thing is, and there's a few pieces to it. So it's not like I'm just going to say, here's both sides and I just lean one way. I'll give you some of the things that I think points to that direction. I think the nature of the shot. Single shot, one kill from a roof, multiple decoys. That to me, that's in the marksmanship of getting that shot in there. It speaks to a professional job. That speaks more to a professional job than it does to a disgruntled young guy. And secondly, I think the parallels to this in JFK, they cannot be ignored. They can't be. It's going from one guy who was like, okay, to he started asking too many questions about a foreign influence that has way too much influence on Washington, and then they're gone in short order. Now, the other thing too is obviously the story from the gray zone. Now we have this new angle being presented, one of which I don't even think is new because Harrison Smith already had broached it. It just wasn't taken into heavy consideration at the time, but now it's looked at in a different light. So that would be one person I would pay attention to. I'll say it again. I'll probably say it like 4 times. Pay attention to Harrison Smith and what occurs with him. Because now he is the end, the custody chain ends there, right? He's the last person we know that this friend has spoken to, probably maybe outside of Max Blumenthal. And also, that friend has got to make sure that he stays anonymous. That is for sure. That guy's probably fearing for his life. So more power to that guy, man. I hope he stays in the shadows and can live the rest of his life not being threatened and harassed to the end of his days. And then we have Netanyahu denying the allegations. And this is what kind of blew me away. No, not that one. Why did it do that? Let me pull it up on screen. I didn't even, I just thought it was a Twitter post. I didn't realize Netanyahu had went on air to deny the allegations. So this is with Newsmax. So the post is from Jackson Hinkle. He says, breaking, Netanyahu claims Israel did not assassinate Charlie Kirk. And then he says, what an odd thing for a world leader to say. But I was just like, I was kind of taken aback. I was like, wouldn't you just like dismiss this, right, with a post? Like, I think the appearance kind of adds a bit more credibility to it, especially because I haven't seen anybody major like call for it. I've only seen people like saying, oh, this is odd. I haven't seen any kind of like major person or character call for it. Is the poll gone? I've seen most people say that. It's there's 60 votes. Israel is winning handily. Very handily. The poll's up on my side. Let's take a listen. This is going to be Netanyahu. He's denying the allegations. Let's see.
Before I let you go, I want you to address one thing, it's just the absurdity of it. Some of the internet rumors that somehow Israel is behind the Charlie Kirk murder, and I don't believe it for 1 second. But
what a hard question, man. What a way to set that up. And it's these absurd rumors that are completely baseless. That kind of wow, very unbiased reporting here, ma'am. Dude.
I want you to make a statement. It's so absurd.
That's insane. That's insane. Israel also changes the orbit of the moon. Israel pushes the sun. I mean, the whole thing it's not only insane, I think it's so absurd, so stupid, and so ridiculous. You can't believe that people are saying this. They just found the perpetrator. They'll get to the bottom of this. But they go, they have no limits. When you hate Jews, when you hate the Jewish state, you're willing to say anything and promote all these absurd rumors. And by the way, they're willing to kill us all the time. I mean, that's what they're doing. And over the centuries when...
Okay. So that was basically going to turn into a 2-minute of, they've been doing this our whole life. Persecuted, Holocaust. Never stops for them. But I thought that was a bit odd. But then we have there's still 3 major glaring things I've not even talked about yet. Well, I brought it up, the decoys. We have George Zinn. George Zinn, Jewish man, first to be arrested. He was the man who was shouting, old man. He was the first decoy, first person the FBI ends up arresting. Ultimately was released later. There is a second individual who was arrested, who I believe the reason why he was arrested and targeted was because he was carrying a BB gun. And I think they also said in the report too, he had some weird movements that caused him to pay attention to him. Then you have the fact that the Israeli media outlet, the Jerusalem Post, was the first news and media publication to post about the story in the entire world. So we have the timestamp. There's another content creator who did a good job covering this. But if I just search timestamp Jerusalem Post, you will see is it this one? Forgive me, I didn't have the screen over. It's this one here. So you have multiple, and you can just find this. Somebody categorized a couple of them too. So within 31 minutes, they had the story posted. They had the story posted and publicized. It's not that they were quick with it per se. It's the fact that they were the first out of anybody. And you got to think about it too. Like, are we seriously expected to believe that the Jerusalem Post had a field reporter there? There was many other smaller media outlets there that definitely would have the report there before anybody else. You would imagine, especially those on the ground. But again, another grain in the sand of that's curious, that's odd. But again, a coincidence in the same vein of Israeli involvement. Why would this foreign country have the news stories out before any outlet in America, given the fact that the person the story is about is an American sweetheart? Interesting. Circumstantial at best, though. Not that it is anything convicting at all, but it is something to pay attention to. We also have what I'm not seeing being covered quite a bit is from Sean Hannity with John Solomon, which I'll pull up here as well too. Foreign influence was mentioned multiple times. So I'll get this old up here too. This is from Sean Hannity. Now this, I believe, when was this? Yes, okay, this is from earlier today, actually. And they had highlighted this. The idea here being that they're now looking, obviously, after the assassination to put these pieces together. But the part that gets loose here from John Solomon is that there is another group of interest to, I would imagine, the FBI, that they may have some intelligence as it pertains they are a foreign that's friendly to the United States. So again, you think of that, right? Which foreign intelligence group that is friendly to the United States is talked about at length at all, ever. I mean, it's Israel, right? Now you could say MI6, but no one ever talks about MI6. They're really non-existent compared to, Israeli surveillance sources, Israeli security and digital cyber media, as well as ours. We rarely refer to any other group outside of ourselves, our own IC, and theirs. It's only a 50-second clip here, but Sean Hannity and John Solomon themselves talking about the allegation at least is out there, or the report is out there, that there is in some way foreign-friendly intelligence involved.
I have a source in the intelligence community, John, that said that there might be post-assassination pieces of a puzzle that might be put together, that there might be a foreign component to it. Yeah. Again, we don't know for sure. I know it's being discussed. Have you heard the same thing?
Yes, there is a group or two of interest that are in the Salt Lake City area that they're looking at, just because of certain recent activities overseas and certain intelligence shared by a foreign friendly from the United States doesn't necessarily mean that it is connected to the shooting. I suspect, though, it's going to result in some action, even if it's not tied to the shooting. But there is a small foreign component that's being looked at. Again, all leads are open. I don't think they've locked into a final theory of the case yet.
I have a source in
It sure doesn't feel like all leads are open right now. It feels like a lot of people are moving to the case closed, and they want this guy executed as quickly as possible. I did catch that from Tariq. Let me go back to the Jerusalem Post. I would like to be able to find the one that I saw, if I can type correctly. Interesting. Well, maybe it's in my bookmarks, or maybe it was deleted. So just take that with a grain of salt then. Maybe I saw it from Mr. James Lee. Or maybe it's just being suppressed. Let me just skim through here real quick. So he's just covering basic stuff. Okay, so that's James Lee. He's like in the circle with Ian Carroll. Forgive me. I really want to nail down this Jerusalem Post one. Because I feel like I need to retract that if that's not true. Okay, because that's from earlier. Okay. Never mind then. I can't find it now, guys. I'm assuming the person I must have seen it from must have deleted the tweet, or maybe it wasn't true. Lord of the Reed said he tagged me. Is it in the Discord? Oh, you put it through Tix. It's gonna have the Interesting. Interesting. I see that text. I have this wired one here. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you. Yeah, sorry for the silence, guys. I'm just going to do it quick. I am very... It's okay. So nothing about the Jerusalem Post. That was who it was. Let me just type in Israeli media timestamp. Because if I can't find it, then I'm just going to say maybe it's not even real then. Let's see if there's any comments here. Interesting. I saw it from bigger accounts. I'm assuming they had to have deleted it. I'm assuming. That's crazy. Maybe I'll just go to the latest. Maybe that'll be easier to find. Okay. Kind of wild that I saw a bajillion articles about that earlier and 1,000 posts. There we go. Oh my gosh, that's all I was looking for. I wish I found the original where this screenshot was from, but there is. They showed on the 12-hour time how early the Jerusalem Post had posted it. Just take it with a grain of salt. At this point, I'm kind of curious how true that may be, or if someone did their math wrong and they ended up just being erroneous in general. But I did think that was an element there. So disregard that until we get some stronger sources on that. This may be just some kids who aren't reading. So take that aspect with a grain of salt, but that still doesn't change the fact that there was the 2 decoys and the overwhelming scenario and the context of such appear as an operation, if you will, if that's even the correct way to say it. And then you have the foreign intelligence aspect of it, spoken by our mainstream guys here, Sean Hannity, with John Solomon there too. But that kind of is a bit where we are. This is like kind of where we're left off at. That is, and then we have the plane. So let me actually get to the plane. The plane's the other big one. So there was a very, very, very weird plane and flight pattern. So this is from Adam Media. Take it with a grain of salt here too. Adam, I love his account, but he is very much anti-Israel. So again, this is someone who is going to be biased, but I am biased that same way. And he writes, breaking: suspected Charlie Kirk killer getaway jet owned by Chabad Lubavitch donor. I don't even know if I said that right. The private jet took off after the shooting and then disabled its location monitoring system. The jet is owned by Derek Maxfield, a wealthy donor to the Chabad Lubavitch of Utah. The man who broke this story actually did it 2 days earlier, or a day earlier, forgive me, like very early. So he writes, Charlie Kirk just as incoming. A private plane with tail number N888KG left Utah after the shooting. Landed in Wendover, never filed, no transponder from there on. Desert airstrip, cameras off. And the other element of this is that where this plane was stationed before it took off was what was, I believe they said it is a 12 minutes from the shooting. It was within walking distance. And it has an extremely odd flight pattern. Like this was the only flight it did like all year. And then it turns off its data. I'm kind of curious why haven't we gotten more about the plane here? And because Charlie Kirk, as far as I understand, flew on Air Force Two. Or that's how his body was transported. This one is one that I've not seen like anything about beyond just a couple of these posts here. Okay, so here we go. So we do have added context for this one. Fleet radar. Okay. Well, I'm not going to pay for their for more of the flight data. That does look like a flight log here. So half an hour trip and then a 37-minute or 34-minute trip, 37-minute trip. Stationed at 1:15, which or started. Interesting. So take that one with a grain of salt then too. Looks like that one may be a red herring. May just be another aspect of distraction. But again, doesn't make up for Mr. George Zinn. And I think George Zinn is the one we need to actually look at a bit more. And the reason why is because Suleiman brought this to my attention. George Zinn was also doing 9/11 promo back in the day. Why does that matter? Because if anybody is familiar with the alternate, not unofficial 9/11 narrative, you know that does not involve around Afghanis or Islamics being behind 9/11. Now he says crisis actor. It's more so that this guy was brought in to speak about how when the towers hit, I knew immediately that it was those Islamic terrorists. That's kind of the sentiment. So he's pushing stuff like that. It's just chaos. It's very much chaos. There were a few other extra slaps to the face. I think earlier today when Kash Patel had given his address, he basically had come on and said, I hope you're in Valhalla, Charlie. And it's like, you couldn't even for 2 seconds give the brother like seriously, you think Charlie Kirk thinks he's going to Valhalla? Like, yeah, all of us white dudes are all the same. I don't know, man. Sure. But the press conferences were lackluster, both of them. The first one that happened that was people were sitting around waiting for, that Kash Patel didn't even speak at, was disappointing for the fact that they basically said they have nothing. They didn't present anything. They essentially just said that we think this is the guy, and it's the same video that was on X and circulating on X for 4 hours before they even had the press conference. At a certain point, you have to rope in this idea of how meaningful even, or how capable, competent even are these agencies in the first place? Or is it planned incompetence? Are they only not able to do these things when it would be meaningful or matter or actually pursue justice? Because at the same time, you think about all of the insane profiles they have on everybody who attended January 6th. They were able to find women on obscure Alaskan airlines in 2020, hunting them down, hunting grandmothers down. That they have entire rubrics on how to grade how close or how extreme or radical someone is because they decided they wanted to teach their children at home instead of putting them in the public school department. We can do all of that. We can't provide meaningful answers. I was hoping at this point the Discord logs would have been leaked. Maybe they did and I just haven't seen it. But I'm not seeing it. So, it's just the allegations. He was in Antifa. He was involved in some of these more extreme leftist groups. That's the official narrative. So it's that versus foreign influence and wanting to eliminate Charlie before he became a problem. Those are the two. So, angry leftist, mad at the world, mad at Charlie for speaking, versus Charlie possibly was no longer going to be useful and in fact be very damaging to goals outside of the interests of the United States. Those are two theories. And again, bravo and props to Nick. Absolute legendary stream there. And we'll kind of bring it back and center it down a bit on kind of some of the stuff that's going on. Because we have these massive doxing campaigns happening now. And even in my own Discord, which some of you are obviously there, seems we have some differing opinions on if it's abandoning principles, what is supposed to, what should we be doing in retaliation. So we get Asmongold. Asmongold mobilizes, I believe it's called Roach Ranch, which is hilarious, by the way. He mobilizes Roach Ranch because he's pissed. And much like many others, he's pissed, but also terrified. Terrified that if we don't take steps or measures such as that what waits us on the other side of this is going to ultimately be extreme civil conflict, but simply civil war. So Asmongold put out a 20-minute video yesterday, mobilizing his audience, encouraging them to come along, join his group, join his community there on X, and help him figure out where a lot of these disgusting people work at. Because him, like many, believe that there needs to be a cost. And that's where I'm at, which is, what should the cost be then? Because we can't move on from this moment. We can't move on from people in the thousands celebrating the death of someone who wanted to simply have a conversation, and there not be consequences for these individuals. Obviously, I don't want them to be harmed. This is the separation point, right? We need to be above reproach. We don't pursue harm or violence against these people. But this world operates on incentive structures. And if we do not have consequences on the other side of bad decisions or harmful decisions, it's all for naught. So that puts me back to, then yes, they do need to be fired from their jobs. They probably do need to be ostracized to some degree. I cannot tell you how eye-opening it was to see many people I grew up with, went to school with, shared workplaces with, cheering on and screaming at the top of their lungs their jubilation and excitement for the fact that Charlie is no longer with us. And every one of us here knows that Charlie was a nicer and generally probably more cleaned up person than we were. Especially for me. And maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody here. So they were definitely willing to do that to him, and that because he had views that were oppositional to transgenderism and infanticide, child sacrifice, and many other things that I too would also categorize as degeneracy, they think that because I oppose it, that is worthy of death. There has to be consequences. And I think that those consequences, the cost of those decisions, the cost of celebrating the death of your opponent because your ideas are not winning, has to be livelihood. Not threatening their well-being, but their livelihood has to be threatened now. And not because it's in a vain attempt to get vengeance for the cancellation in the cancel culture that has been built by these same people. Because we don't need to pursue vengeance. Vengeance is God's and God's alone. What we do need to do is ensure that this country we are willing and wanting to participate in, we are demanding our children be invested in, actually means something and be a country, actually be a society. Because without an incentive structure that takes away from these kind of actions, it only encourages even more harsher action and reaction. And I think Nick was spot on when he said, at the end of this road is just multiple warlords deciding whose wife they're going to take from whose husband. If that is the world you wish to live in, then continue down that path. If that is not the world you wish to live in, we need to begin to immediately figuring out why so many people are openly rejecting Jesus Christ. We need to understand why so many people are willingly going to throw themselves into destruction for a lot of menial causes. And there has to be cause. There just can't be. And the thing is if there's not at least some form of tangible cost, it will inspire people on the right wing who are a lot closer to anger or quicker to anger to do something, and then we're right back to where the ball goes back into the left's court. And we don't want that. We don't want to give them the environmental, or the positioning rather, the climate for them to go game on. Because that's the position right now that we are in. We very well can sit here and say game on and begin crushing without any principle in mind at all in the vain attempt of retribution because we want to make ourselves feel good. And that's what I kind of warn against, and I'm glad that Nick warned against too. You know, you have to find where the line is, right? Where's the line of once I do this, I have begun my clean break away from Christianity. Find that line and never cross it. And that's why we have to be, and it sucks, right? It sucks. But that is what Christianity is. Life isn't just suffering because we're suffering for ourselves, or because we're suffering for our children, or because we're suffering for our family. We suffer because we also love our enemies. Now, I would never probably be able to do as good of a job as a Joel Webbin or Nick Fuentes, but I will try. But that is what this country has lost completely. There is no nuance. There is no even half attempted understanding. There is only impulse and reaction. Hell, the majority of YouTube's chat or YouTube content is just reactionary. The number one shared digital media is rage bait. Did you see this? This shit pissed me off. Our society could not be any further flipped upside down than it was designed to be. And again, categorically, every single era and aspect. This goes to women. This goes to men. This goes to Wall Street. This goes to finance. This goes to law enforcement. This goes to military. This goes to every element is suffering for one, the lack of good men willing to uphold good values, and two, the tolerance of all of those who say they believe in these things and our willingness to accept the way that things are. And I do not think it should be shocking to anybody that Charlie Kirk was taken out the way he does. I think if you're telling me that you saw now for the first time just how disgusting and evil the left has become, you either one, have not been paying attention, or two, you are lying to yourself. I think a lot of us here felt this was coming, and we didn't. And I think the real question goes, not to be surprised at it, but ask yourself deeply and carry it with you. Why did it take Charlie dying publicly in front of thousands of people and then online in front of millions for men in this country to go, man, maybe I should pay the fuck attention? And forgive the language, but it is the thing that bothers me the most out of this country. You think you're going to get all these rights, all of these privileges in this country, and you have no responsibility. You have nothing to be accountable to. You're going to gain all of these things. You're going to go to school your entire life and learn about how every man before you who built this country with his bare hands sacrificed, trudged through winter, and died at 34 years old, and you would have nothing you would have to be accountable for. we need to ask ourselves, especially as men and women, where are we failing and what do we need to do better? And not to be, hippy dippy and we all need to get along, but it's true. Every single aspect, every single element, all of us here, there's something that we are struggling with and we got to work on it. We got to get it to be better. Oh, Charlie Kirk's wife's supposed to speak tonight. That's awesome. And it's going to be hard for her. And it's going to be a hard thing to watch for, I would imagine, all of us. But, good on her for speaking out. Some of the other things I wanted to get to as well, too, a little bit from the Trump admin, before we go to some of the detractors, and I'll probably get ready to sign off soon. There's a weird truth post out that shows Trump and Charlie Kirk looks like Trump is kissing him on the ear or something. It's so homoerotic. But it has Hebrew on it, and it's got the Israel flag in there, and it's positioned behind Charlie. It's like some of the optics, these people they're not grasping. There is, however, and this is one thing we can probably get into that is going to be actionable. Trump is pursuing George Soros now, and he's investigating them under RICO charges. As in the belief that the Soros funding behind a lot of these groups, and maybe we'll get something actionable about this. But I'll go ahead and rip. This is from Shadow of Ezra, and it was on Fox News, I believe, but here it is.
I had one the other night. I went into a restaurant, and this woman stood up. I looked at her immediately. She had money. She wasn't serious. They get paid for it. They're professional from Soros and other people. And we're going to look into Soros because I think it's a RICO case against him and other people. Because this is more than like protests. This is real agitation. This is riots on the street. And we're going to look into that.
What do we do about our country with that? Because we have radicals on the right.
I had one the other night. I went into a restaurant, and this woman.
So there's something actionable. Something. But that's essentially where we are. And the last couple of things that I'll leave you guys with, there's two other kind of annoying elements that I wanted to address just because I do think that it's worth showing. It's worth addressing. Let's look at three of our alt-right companions. Start with Owen Benjamin. From Owen Benjamin, this is from from last night, it looks like, or late in the night last night. Nick Fuentes had 175,000 live viewers tonight. It was 173,000 Mossad agents and a few pedos and his mom. Very, very helpful. One. Like, Fuentes derangement syndrome, if you will, but it was very easy to me to see three men. It's going to be Owen Benjamin, Milo Yiannopoulos, Captive Dreamer. I don't care if they know that I'm talking about him. I don't give a shit. I'll tag you on X. I'll tag me. Someone clip it if you want to. You can tag him directly. Bro, he needs to retire. Owen Benjamin just retired, dude. You don't have it anymore. You've lost the plot. No one wants to listen to a schizo who looks like he cannot shave his face in a straight line. But secondly, it showed me that in this moment, in the moment for America, you could not, your impulse control was so low, you could not help yourself, but try to bite at the lowest hanging fruit. Because your ego is so permanently damaged by your fallout with Nick and your disagreements with Nick. The next one is Milo Yiannopoulos. From Milo himself, someone who's supposed to be on our side, a conservative, if you will. A homosexual conservative at that. He writes, "Yep, looks like a regular everyday groiper to me," pushing the idea that it was one of us, one of the dissident right. This man is also permanently damaged. His ego is utterly destroyed It has been as sodomized as his asshole. He has become, his whole personality is being just anti anything Nick is. And I wish I had this photo, and I hope he deleted it because he got flamed for it. But he had a video or a post where he says, I'll take up the hammer, or I'll take up the podium, or something along to that effect. As if anyone here, hopefully he deleted it, but he posts so much. But to think anyone here is looking as Milo Yiannopoulos to be the leader of this movement is laughable. Yeah, I hope he deleted it. Another guy. Like I just literally just like, that's all that you can care about right now, dude. That's it. And to think on top of it as well, like, Nick has probably his most professional moment last night. And you're still trying to sow seeds of doubt. Milo Yiannopoulos, listen to me. I am someone who has a fraction of the influence you do, and probably even smaller of a fraction of the money you do. You will never, ever be the leader of this movement. You will never, ever garner even a considerable portion of the respect that Nick Fuentes had, and let alone even what Charlie Kirk had. You are a flaming joke. You destroy the optics of this movement half the time. And you're one of the cringiest people I've ever seen on this platform. The next person is going to be Captive Dreamer. Captive Dreamer, and this is from Meta Prime, he quoted this. I wasn't able to find the original, and I might actually be blocked by him. It's hard to remember. I'm blocked by so many people. But this is a quote or a screenshot, and there was one other one with this. I wish you would have caught both of them. The Captive Dreamer, again, another one of our guys, right? One of our people on the right, supposedly. You can consider him two people almost with how big his forehead is. He writes, Groypers get doxxed too, by the way. No quarter. After the horrific stuff they've said about Charlie over the years, every single one is complicit. DM me with any info. The first moment that he had, he pointed the cannons at us. Knowing damn well that it was not a Groyper, nothing speaks to it being a Groyper, and knowing that a Groyper is one of the last people who would have done anything like this. The continual painting of the dissident right as anything but extreme Catholics, extreme Christians, is so disingenuous. But he is fighting tooth and nail to defend the yard by yard portion of real estate he has in the conservative group, in the conservative space, which is all of those other individuals like Jaden McNeil, who couldn't take even the slightest bit of criticism or just the slightest joke, and it crumpled them entirely. This brother has not made a video once since Nick just clapped back at him. The guy's not a good actor. And it's moments like this where you go, remember this. I will remember forever the way that you behaved in the following hours after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Not a single ounce of Christianity was whiffed, seen, or smelled, or heard out of those three men. Nope. Just ego. It's look at me. I couldn't find it, but the Milo post was like, it's like a selfie of him, and he's like, I'll do it. I'll lead the youth. Yeah, dude. Nobody wants to be behind you, Milo. And then we have the ugly, a few of which I'm not going to go through. But I want to go through one in particular. And I think this would be a good one to end on. Because I want to keep the fire alive. I want to keep the fire alive of like what these people think about me, you, and others, your mom, your dad. So this is from Shania Rich, and I quoted this earlier because I was just irritated at the caption. I don't think that the surprise should be that they exist. The surprise should be, how did you not notice? That's what I'm surprised about. How are you not notice? How many man on the street interviews do you have to see of someone blatantly telling you they hate you, they think you're oppressing you, and they think you deserve? But now all of a sudden, now we're taking them at their word after Charlie Kirk died. Come on. But this is to keep the fire. This is not, and again, this is not in any way an attempt to go do something, anything beyond just the simple mobilization of getting more involved into whether it's your community, even an online community, at least something, right? If you were a lurker, you never talked to anybody, try talking to somebody. If you were generally just in chat, but you never joined the Discord, try finding some alternate element to be involved in. If you're involved in all of those things, but you've not started an IRL or anything, you have no idea even how your local politics work, look it up. If you have an idea of how your local politics work, you have an idea of who the people are in office, and you think you'd be a better fit in office, why aren't you? And if you are in office, and you do think you were a good fit, and you did win your race, and you're not a groiper, get out of the way. But here's this, and I think this lady, well, maybe it's, I don't even know, to be honest with you. She exemplifies the thought process of the average person that we are up against. Now let's go ahead and let it rip. I'm going to turn the volume down too.
How do you feel about Charlie Kirk getting assassinated?
Some people say it's deserved.
To get murdered in front of his children and family?
When God calls you home, you gotta go.
You think God called him home? It's well deserved. For him specifically getting killed, womp womp. He got what he deserved. Honestly, I feel like he just got what he deserved. No shame.
Don't you think it's disgusting to be celebrating someone's death?
Well, coming from a perspective as a woman of color, and
that justifies it?
100%, I feel like. Because nobody gave a f when it was MLK.
Just to pause, this is to tell you the plight of what it means to be Christian. Do you guys think that you are? Do you think that you right now are in the position where you could say, I forgive you? I know you hate me. I know you wish me ill. I know you would laugh if that happened to me. Can you, Christian man, Christian woman, say, I know you would do that, and I forgive you? Because see, that's what I struggle with. I ain't going to sit up here on some podium and tell you like, man, like I'm out here, I'm forgiving left and right. Brother, I struggle with wrath worse than I think probably about anybody. But when you sit and you think, you go, I'm not going to, I'm not able to forgive her, but we're going to expect that, God and Jesus forgives us. That's not how it works, man. It's tough. But this is the ideology. This is the religion. This is the belief. This is the truth. This is the love that built the West. Nothing else. Listen, I'm calling myself out too. Don't think I'm just calling everybody else out. I'm not sitting here saying I'm some, emblazoned example of a Christian. I struggle very much. And in fact, maybe I probably do such a bad of a job. I probably turn people away, but I try my hardest. But it is something to think about. And I think the deeper we get into this fight, I think it's more imperative we concern ourselves with our souls. As Nick said, the one thing that we get to keep from this life, or at least get to have, is our souls. To answer your question, Sunrise Kuiper, I would probably be nervous even if I had 1,000 live viewers, man. It's I can't even imagine the pressure that Nick's under right now. Not even close. I have no idea what that feels like. But I'll pull it back a little bit. We'll go back to this. We'll start here.
It's disgusting to be celebrating someone's death.
Well, coming from a perspective as a woman of color, and
that justifies it.
100%, I feel like, because nobody gave a f when it was MLK, Malcolm X. Like,
We don't like those kind of deaths either.
there's no group of white people that I see pushing so hard for those type of deaths.
That was a while ago. We equally condemn those deaths.
Do we? I mean,
you're talking to me right now. You think that most conservative white men want black people to die?
well, the one who recently just died, Charlie, definitely thought so. You basically wanted black people to be slaves. Like, what are you talking about?
I feel like if you wish death on other people, for that to happen to you, it's kind of like, that's just karma.
Who does he wish death on?
He said awful things about trans people, doesn't care about their rights, or like, he's a conservative.
So if you don't like trans people, you deserve to be shot in the neck?
100% the people who oppress us deserve to die. Like,
So if you don't like trans people, you
Understand that semantic argument that just happened there. That real quick, just slamming from point A to point B. Is going from he says things that's oppositional to the trans ideology, thus he oppresses me, thus he deserves to die. What? A guy who runs an organization that he built from his bare hands, granted he had huge amounts of Zionist funding, but still, he is the face and he did the legwork. No one's going to sit here and say he didn't get up every day with a mission, like he clearly did. That's oppression? Really? The guy who does legwork just because he doesn't believe that you can cut your balls off and say you're a woman. It's crazy, and that really does bother me. And there was a great the great comment that was up here. I'll go up a little bit from forgive me, what's his name? Like Harrison, something that's with an H. Honorable Harbinger. God is just, and he will judge them all equally. The disdain you feel in your heart is righteously justified, and there is a difference between anger and righteous anger. And it's very true. It's very true. People don't understand all of the, like, am I, from Psalms, I believe, and this is from Solomon, am I not to hate that which is evil? Perfect hatred. This is a lot of the issue. But I am going to go ahead and wrap up. It looks like Mr. Few Bakehart said that Charlie Kirk's YouTube channel just went live. His wife is speaking. I'm not going to bring you guys here. Let's all go watch Charlie Kirk. I'll go ahead and sign off. I want to be a little bit longer. Kind of a quick end and a quick outro. I appreciate everybody being here. But that's the fight. That is the goal. It is Christianity, Jesus Christ. We, I, you are nothing without Jesus. This nation means nothing without Jesus. And there is no meaningful solution without Jesus. God bless everybody. Christ is King. As always, ban women from public life. Support Kash Patel. And I hope we can one day save this country. I appreciate everybody. And I will see you guys next week. Take care. What's good, everybody? This is Atlas Thug. As much as we have, it's currently a media blackout right now. It's about a 10-minute video here. Get the libertarians out of this party, dude. Part of a new series I'm going to be running called Bot or Not.
I grew up as a white man, and you're the exact opposite, you know?
It's time we have a difficult conversation about race.
40 IQ points it needs to think about what is being told to you.
Most people are just blatantly apathetic to what goes on around them, their surroundings, let alone just blatant.
A trans woman's penis make you gay?
Can I define to answer that comment?
The dating market is for men your age. I'm not a misogynist. I'm a sexist. Right. Like for example, like as a white man, I can go out and I could go right here in Columbus and scream the N-word as loud as I wanted to because I have that privilege. Those who would sacrifice a little freedom for a little convenience serves neither.
Titan says, Browns should be for whites. We were just trying to help them run a better empire.
Hey, truth.
But she's straight up, she's like stock market. She's like, can't even buy a fucking house. Like,
and probably doesn't help that half the comments are, "How are you not banned on YouTube? Man, how is this guy? How is this guy not banned on YouTube?" It's like, yeah, I'm sure YouTube probably picks up on those things, and they're probably wondering why so many people are saying that,
And all these top brass pundits who have some kind of association or relationship with Epstein, it's getting to the point where you got to think like I'm about to go look at my residential history and be like, did I live next to Epstein for like some time? Like, man, everyone on this planet must have some relation to Epstein. And then you go, oh, actually, no. This is because the administration is all wrapped in together with it themselves.
And I said this maybe about a year ago. What if Christianity wasn't in such a cucked position that what if Andrew Tate, like Tristan, would have went to a Christian position? Fell for it again award, #1 right here. And you know what? I can't even make fun of the audience because I fell for it too. And that's probably what I'm most pissed about. He's huffing some extreme copium. Oh yeah, sister, you definitely owned him. Hey, can I see you after tonight? It's like that's that's what you're competing up against, because for bad jacketing him and calling him a weird little gay.
Is this like alt-right corpse husband? What am I listening to?
Okay, stop it. This guy's gonna get into statistics, stuff like that.
Oh, no, statistics. Not we don't do statistics.